Hey, this is Mad Movie Mark, the Mad Movie Mark Movie Review. Thank you for joining me as I review the 2021 French drama, The Summit of the Gods.
Dis pas n'importe quoi. Tu t'en sors très bien.
Hey, thank you. I like to hope that's true. I thought The Summit of the Gods was an incredible movie. It's based on a Japanese manga, and it has some of the most beautiful, realistic art I've ever seen in my life. The art in this movie is absolutely breathtaking. The story is intriguing. It leaves you on the edge of your seat. There's very few animated movies that I've ever seen that leave me on the edge of my seat like this movie did, and it's absolutely fantastic. One of the things I love about this movie is, for me, I might be getting this completely wrong, but for me, the character of Habu, who is like this professional climber who is incredibly famous, and he tries to set out to climb Mount Everest, but he tries to do it in different ways every time, and each way is exceedingly more difficult. He just seems like he's the character of Shane from the movie Shane to me. And that in Shane, he tries to say that because he is the quickest draw in the West, that everyone is constantly bothering him, trying to kill him, trying to be quicker than him, trying to be better than him, and he just wants to be left alone, essentially. To me, that's what this movie is. Habu is Shane, in which he is the best climber in the world. He just wants to go off and do these solo climbs. He just wants to be by himself and do stuff. And people just keep coming up and they're like, I'm going to climb with you whether you like it or not. I'm going to be there the day you're climbing, and I'm going to climb with you. And if you don't accept that and if you don't let me climb with you, you're just going to have to deal with me, which I thought was funny and both tragic at the same time, because tragedy does happen to a couple of these people who decide that they want to travel with him and try to ascend Mount Everest with him, which is considered the summit of the gods. So in the beginning of this movie, we have two hikers named George Mallory and Andrew Irvine, who I believe were real hikers who went up Mount Everest. They were the first people to try to ascend Mount Everest, but they went off on this expedition to try to go up, and they never came back, and no one knows. They know that they passed away, that they died, but they don't know if they actually ever reached the top of the mountain, and if they died on their way back down or if they died on their way up, which would be very historical in that I don't believe that they are considered the first people to ever reach the top, because no one knows if they actually did it. Now, there's a photographer in this movie. He's a Japanese reporter, but he's also a photographer named Fukamachi, who one day he just kind of sees Habu in an alleyway. This guy tries to sell Fukamachi a camera, who he says the camera is from George Mallory. Now, there was a camera that George had on the mountain, which no one could ever find, and if they could find it, it would unlock all these mysteries of if he actually made it to the summit or not. So this guy tries to sell him this camera. Now, of course, Fukamachi thinks that this is just someone who's trying to hustle him, so he says, no, I don't want it. But then he goes outside and he sees someone who looks like Habu roughing up this guy for his camera back. Now, Habu, of course, is a famous climber, like I said in the beginning. So Fukamachi thinks that maybe there's actually some credence to the fact that this is the camera, the famous camera, and Fukamachi found it. Now, Habu disappeared a while ago. Like, no one has seen him for years. He had an accident with someone he was climbing with, and he kind of disappeared into obscurity. And Fukamachi thinks that Habu is actually secretly planning on ascending back up Mount Everest and trying to do this famous, like, there's different points of Mount Everest that you can climb, and there's this famous point that is incredibly difficult, and he thinks that he's going to try to climb it without oxygen and try to be like the first person to do this incredibly difficult climb. So he searches and tries to find Habu, because no one knows where he is. No one's heard from him for years. He's basically this ghost that kind of is just a myth right now. Now, He finally, as he's going through this, he learns that Habu tried to do this climb years before by himself, and this young kid kind of went up to him and said, "Hey, I want to do this climb with you, and I'm not going to take no for an answer." Before this, Habu was with a group of people, and they were talking about, well, there's going to be spoilers in this, just to let you know. So if you don't want spoilers, I wouldn't go too far with this review. There's going to be spoilers here. So these group of climbers were with Habu, and they were talking about how if you are climbing with someone and someone is below you, and you're ahead of them, and they end up falling, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to climb back up and get themselves out of danger, like what would you do? Everyone's trying to think about how you could get the other person up and how you could save their lives, and what you could do to both get out of the situation. And Habu just says, I would cut the line, and there's no use in both of us dying. Like, if the person doesn't look like they can be saved, you just have to cut the line and let them go. Now at this point, he's just talking, like these are just words. He's just shooting the shit with someone. But later in the movie, this kid that he's traveling with, this actually happens where Habu is ahead of him, and the kid ends up getting into the situation. Now, Habu does everything he absolutely can to save this kid. He tries very hard. But the kid, I think, realizes at some point that he's not going to make it, and he ends up cutting his own line. After this happens, like, Habu gets these really bad frostbitten fingers where he loses a couple fingers and he loses a leg. I think this is the character who loses fingers and a leg. Later on in the movie, I'm a little confused by this. Maybe he got prosthetics or something, and he ends up disappearing forever. Like, he disappears and no one can find him after this. So the photographer ends up going throughout the middle of the movie. He ends up looking for him, and he finds out where he is, and he finds him, and he says, hey, I know you're planning on doing this run up the mountain by yourself, and I think you should have someone document this. I think you should have someone take photos of this. That way, in case you achieve it, if you don't have photographers, you don't have someone around you, no one's going to know about it. So Habu reluctantly decides to let him do this, but he says, hey, look, this is going to be a very hard climb. It's a very hard part of the season. It's winter. This is not for the faint of heart. And if we get split up and if something happens to you, I'm not coming back for you. You have to realize that I'm just going to leave you and you're going to die, essentially. And Fukamachi says, okay, that's fine. Like, I understand the risk that's going on here. So they end up ascending this mountain, and Fukamachi ends up getting in a bit of trouble, a lot of trouble, and Habu ends up coming back to save him. And he's like, hey, look, like, I thought you weren't going to save me. And Habu was like, I didn't save you. We still need to get down this mountain. Like, we're not out of harm's way yet. I'm just helping you continue on our trek here. I don't want to go up into what happens at the end of the movie too much, whether they reach the destination, whether or not they both survive, how that happens. I will say that this is a spoiler, but I will say that the camera Habu had was the camera of George Mallory. The film is developed at the end of the movie, and it is known whether or not George Mallory was the first to ascend and successfully ascend and descend the mountain. At the end of the movie, it's kind of said that it doesn't really matter whether or not he did. So I guess that was all for naught, essentially. Well, not really, but if you're looking for a happy resolution with that, not really. And that's pretty much the whole movie. I thought this movie was quite excellent. It was one of the most engaging animated movies I've ever seen, in that where I'm watching it, there's parts, a good chunk of time where I forget that this movie's animated. Like, I actually feel like these are actually scenes that are happening in front of me. They seem so realistic. Like, I've never climbed a mountain, especially not in the snow, and especially not Mount Everest. But it seems like what they're doing is actually very realistic, and actually is how it is done, how it happens. This movie is very tense. It has a lot of, like I said, on the edge of your seat moments. You really care about both characters, about Habu and Fukamachi. Habu, I really care about him because deep down inside, he really is a very good person, and he cares about who he is traveling with. He tries to have this like rough demeanor and this rough exterior, but he does truly care about the people who are around him. And this is a movie about not only trying to reach your goals, but like you continuously try to set the bar higher and higher and higher. So ultimately, it's like so high that it's very hard to achieve that goal. And it's these group of people, like all these people who are mountain climbers, are obsessed with being the first to do something, the first to climb a mountain solo, the first to climb a mountain without like all the proper equipment, the first to climb a mountain without any air, the first to climb a mountain in the winter. And they're all like obsessed with obtaining these first and being the best at what they do, and to continue to move the envelope, or I'm not sure what that saying is, but continue to do better and better and better and be the best. And their obsession is so much that they're willing to put their lives in danger because they really believe that they have what it takes to do this, and they really believe that they are the one person who can do this in the world. And it's crazy to watch how much determination these people have. I have no determination for this kind of determination for anything. Maybe I should have more drive than I actually do. But yeah, it's crazy to see how obsessed they are, and also Fukamachi, who's obsessed with finding this person and finding the camera. He is also obsessed with being the first person to ever find this camera and to have this footage and to know what's going on. It's just a movie of obsession, basically, and how far you're willing to take that obsession, knowing that you might not come back, knowing that you might die, and are you still willing to put everything on the line just so you can achieve this? And the answer for everyone in this movie is basically yes, they are. And it's a thrilling movie. It's crazy to realize that they are willing to sacrifice so much for what they love. But yeah, I thought the voice acting in this movie was spectacular. Like I said, the art is absolutely amazing. The story is fantastic. One of the best stories I've seen in a animated film in a long time. And I just, like, comparing this to Shane, I just thought it was funny that this guy just wants to be left alone. He just wants to do his own thing. He just wants to climb the damn mountain by himself. And everyone attaches himself to him because he's the best, and everyone wants to be near him because he's the best, and they want to climb this mountain with him because he's the best. And he tells everyone, "Look, you're probably gonna die, but okay, join me, go ahead." But anyway, I thought this movie was quite good, almost perfect, but not quite. There are some, there's some scenes that maybe are a little bit drawn out. There's some aspects of the movie that maybe are a little bit drawn out. But good nonetheless. I give it a 9 out of 10. I hope you join me for my next review, which is going to be Hive. Thank you. Have a great day.